If you were wondering, yes, I do have hair. It's just in the abyss. Now that our lighting and camera angle has changed a little bit. Hello! I anticipate this is a video that is not going to go over pretty well. I just realized I should probably reapply my lipstick. 1 second. There. Today I decided, you know what? How about I talk about some books that I think aren't worth the hype? These are some really popular books and series that everyone seems to own or everyone seems to have read that I personally think aren't the bee's knees. A lot of these might be good. I just think that so many people rave about them and I don't understand why. So without further ado, here's a list of books that I think are overhyped. The first series, we're just gonna start off strong. Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. Has it been 3 years and I'm just now noticing Throne of Glass Rise with Sarah J. Maas? I have read the entire series, or whichever books are out right now. I read them when the first 3 were out and I thought they were really enjoyable. Throne of Glass is this series about this assassin who competes to be the king's assassin, and it's a very addictive series because the main character has such a strong voice and it just progresses from there. The series just keeps growing and expanding and including more people that I don't care about. And the characters that I thought I cared about at the beginning of the series, I now don't care about. And the characters that I used to hate, I now love. And there's characters that aren't even in the series anymore who I love. And there's characters who I don't like who are now at the forefront. And I'm just like, chill. I think my favorite book in the series might be Crown of Midnight, just because it's the book where there's no Manon or irrelevant side characters. I don't know. It puts me in a great mindset after I read these books. I feel like I could hurt someone and I feel powerful, but I step back and think about it and I'm like, this has so many flaws. We don't even need to get into Sarah J. Maas and her lack of representation, but the more it goes on, the more I wish it wouldn't, which is why I'm saying this book's not worth the hype. The first 3, the rest of them, The next series is Fallen Kingdoms by Morgan Rhodes, another fantasy series that I thought I was going to love because it's compared to Game of Thrones for a YA audience, but I was bored. I've only read book 1. I couldn't even give you a synopsis. It just follows several characters and there's lots of scandal and things trying to be figured out. I just thought this was a very mediocre story. I didn't particularly care about any of the characters other than one of them, but I didn't care about him enough to want to read 3 other books. I can see how it's compared to Game of Thrones. I have read Game of Thrones. It's really real for a YA book. There's lots of death and serious topics. It's just, it fell short to me. And a lot of people say that it's like one of the best fantasy series out there, but it does not stick out to me in any way, shape, or fashion, so I'm just confused. I wasn't a fan, and I think it's overhyped. The next one is gonna get me unfollowed. Who was here? I don't know, they're already gone. I'm not a fan of Rick Riordan. I should amend and say I think that Rick Riordan's original Percy Jackson series is overhyped, which, let's step back. If this is a series you read as a kid and it's like your holy grail, your everything, you love it, have it. Like, I'm so happy for you. This is not an attack. But I didn't read them as a kid. I read them when I was like 15, 16, 17, and I thought they were so corny and so overdone. I do think they're innovative. I think they're cool. I think that they play around with Greek mythology in a really clever and interesting way, but the entire tone of the books and the stupid sense of humor, it's just, the first argument is going to be like, well, it's written for kids, you can't expect it to be adult level writing style. Harry Potter's for kids, but it doesn't make me cringe. The only way I can describe Percy Jackson and the Olympians is just cringe. I have read Heroes of Olympus and I like it way more, so I'm gonna continue that series and maybe that'll make it to my books worth the hype list. But Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the next one's also a controversial one. I basically just hate all of the popular series. I'm so hipster. I don't like the Lunar Chronicles. I say I don't like loosely because it's like an okay series to me, but I'm not someone that's like, this book is so good, must recommend to every sci-fi fan ever. Now that I said that out loud, I think I'm kind of realizing the reason I might not like this is because I'm not the hugest fan of sci-fi. That's usually something I stay away from, and reading this is kind of a stretch for me. I loved Cinder, book 1. Cinder the character is my everything. I love her. I think she's strong. I think she's sassy and great, and I love her roboticness. Cyborg, is that what they're called? But this is a companion series that every series follows a new princess. I only cared about Cinder the entire series. They're cool plots. I applaud Marissa Meyer for taking that stand on retellings, but it's just, the first book is so predictable. I did a poll once of like, did you guess the plot twist in Cinder? And literally like 80% of the poll was like, yeah. I just couldn't care about the characters. Nothing about it screamed, this is the best sci-fi book in the YA market. So I didn't get it. Moving onward. The next book is Attachments by Rainbow Rowell. Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell is one of my favorite books of all time. So Rainbow Rowell is definitely not an author who's overhyped. And I think in general, any book by her gets hyped up because she's so loved in the YA community. Attachments, in my opinion, was just very bland. It dragged so much, and every time I tried to pick it up, I would put it back down because I could never stay interested in it for long enough. It took me so long to read the book, and when I finally finished it, it felt like it wasn't even worth it because the characters felt so flat to me compared to everyone else, and just the plot was creepy. It's about this guy that like stalks these girls at his company over email because he's supposed to be reading them to make sure that they're not using work email for something other than work because it's back in the 90s, but then he ends up like falling in love with one of the girls he monitors, and it was just very disturbing to me. There was nothing to make up for it, so it left a bad taste in my mouth. This next book is one that is like a #1 New York Times bestseller, and it's so popular, but I just thought it was okay. And it is Wonder by R.J. Palacio. I understand that this book probably has touched the hearts of thousands, I almost said millions, but I don't know if it sold millions of copies. And I agree that the story is one that needs to be told, and I thought it was an enjoyable story, but the fact that it's like this massive bestseller is a little bit astounding to me because it's written pretty averagely. The characters are pretty average. Like, this book is totally average to me. I guess that kind of goes for all of these books, is that they are such best-selling books that everyone loves, but to me they just seemed like any other book off my shelf. Like, it's not something I would look at and go, oh well, I know why that's popular, it has this in it. It's been a hot minute since I've read this book, so I'm just gonna move on before I say something and give wrong information. The next thing I have to talk about is actually an author, because I think that all of her books are overhyped, but it's Morgan Matson. This video might be turning into a genres that Whitney doesn't like, because again, contemporary YA is not my thing, but back when I did enjoy contemporary YA, I read Morgan Matson, so on both sides, I still was not a fan. I have read Second Chance Summer, Since You've Been Gone, and Amy Rogers' Epic Detour, and I thought that they were all cute, but the fact that literally every single YA contemporary recommendation video has Morgan Matson in it, it's just every time I see her in a recommendation video, I'm like, why though? Her books are good, but they're so long, and they're the same thing over and over, and the main characters in Morgan Matson books are always these shy little precious girls who just want a boyfriend, but they're introverts, and they have a best friend that's way more outgoing than them, and it's melodramatic. There's not enough romance in it to keep my attention. I'm just not a fan of her contemporary books, and I'm not a fan of contemporaries in general anymore, but Morgan Matson in particular is really raved about. I just disagree with how much she's talked about. This last person, I guess it's turning into books and authors that I don't like. I've had several discussions about this. If you know anything about me, you know that you've been expecting this, but Colleen Hoover. Boy! Oh man, I go far back with Colleen Hoover. We've had quite the relationship. Colleen Hoover is the author of several new adult books. I've read several. I've read, I think, all of them except like Never Never and It Ends With Us, or whatever her newest one is called. I used to read them just because they were guilty pleasure reads, and I gave all of them 2 stars. I never really enjoyed them, but they were quick, and it just like satisfied me for like the time that I was reading it. But then I read November 9, which was like the worst of my life. Now every time I hear her name, I'm like, I just think that all of her books portray a really negative style of a relationship, all very male dominant. She puts up this whole facade, like, my main character is so sarcastic, like this book is so progressive and feminist, but in reality, I could write you a thesis, an entire literary analysis about her books and her characters and how often her main characters back down and how they let men trample all over them. That might be some people's thing. You might love that. I hate it. I remember whenever I first started talking about like November 9 and Colleen Hoover, and I was bringing attention to these things that I noticed and no one else was noticing. I was like, this book has like a 5-star rating on Goodreads, and this guy literally threatened physical violence on the main character. Like, I don't understand. How does this go past people's vision? I don't get it. This is probably like the number one that I don't get. I still get people who tweet me like, hey, we have so much in common and I love watching your videos, but I like Colleen Hoover. I hope that's okay. And it's like, I'm not telling you not to like Colleen Hoover. I'm just telling you from the perspective of someone who reads her books and sees the damage that they could potentially do to a young reader. Young reader meaning even someone who's my age, 18, 19, 20, 21. A highly impressionable stage of their love life. I think it's sad that more attention is not brought onto the harmful themes in her books. It just astounds me that so many girls read such violent and hateful scenes, and clearly like the power dynamic between two characters is so unequal and disturbing, and it's still like November 9 has a 4.43 rating on Goodreads. I don't know, man. I don't know. Well, with that being said, I don't anticipate that someone who was offended by this made it all the way through the video, but just wanted to state once again, if these are your favorite books or your favorite authors, fully feel entitled to keep reading them, keep promoting them, keep recommending them, but in my opinion, I didn't see anything worth the hype. And hopefully someone else agrees that maybe these books aren't as good as the dialogue about them online. Hope you all enjoyed this roast session. I will hopefully see you in the future if you have not unsubscribed. See ya!